I think our gut is always to protect our kids. At every stage, our gut question should not be about protecting our kids, but about preparing our kids. And sometimes preparing them might also mean protecting them, but the goal is to prepare them.
Welcome to Blueprints, a podcast helping parents thrive in today's demanding world. Join Greg and Cody as they explore God's big plan for families and the big job of raising kids.
Welcome to Blueprints. We are having our 6th episode where we are talking about how safety can't be the goal of parenting. I am Cody, and I am here with...
Me, Greg.
Me, Greg.
Me, Greg.
I'd like to know how many episodes it's going to take for that handoff to go well.
Yeah, it's going to, you know what? We got quite a few.
It's just say your name.
So
you just say your name.
And me, Greg.
Me, Greg. So I want to kick this off by talking about a common feature of joy for parents that is, like many things, not a common feature of joy for me, but I want to hear a little from you, Greg. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on playgrounds?
So I am a very social person. So anything that gets me around people, I kind of get excited about. I get excited about my kid getting excited. So, you know what? I'm pro.
You're pro playground.
I'm pro playground.
Like if your son was like, "Hey, Dad, can you take me to a playground?" You'd be like, "Yeah."
And he's done that, and I've been like, "Absolutely."
Okay.
But it is this weird thing where you find yourself almost like in this zoo-like atmosphere where all the parents are just surrounding the playground with all these kids running, jumping, climbing, swinging. My son once got hit in the face with a metal rung, but it is this awkward thing where you do find yourself just like on the periphery while your kid's having the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts?
Well,
on
yeah,
playground?
I'm so glad you asked, Greg. Obviously, when my first and maybe second born were like really young, like that's what you do. You take your kids to a playground, you get them out there, all that stuff. I thought that's just kind of what you did. And I never liked it, but I would do it. I'm like, this is what we're supposed to do. But I think as we've gotten older, and let's just say as their access to playgrounds without me has grown, like they have like 2 or 3 resources at their school.
Right.
There's playgrounds all the time.
Yeah.
Like they'll get home, and I finally got to the point where they get home and they ask me to go to a playground. I'm like, no, I'm not going to take you to a playground. That's not like, I don't want to go stand around, watch you in a zoo, do things. Like I'll go play with you somewhere. Yeah. I'll go do something like that, but I'm not going to just sit around, like feel guilty about being on my phone while you do playground things. Maybe I'm an outlier. Maybe I'm not. Maybe there's dozens of us out there who feel this way.
I guess we'll never know because we won't be seeing those people at the playground.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
I think that's a great segue into our question this week.
Yeah, it is. So why don't we hear this question that is very much so related to what we were just talking about.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I live in Minnesota. Between social media and all the changes happening in the world, I'm worried for my kids. How do I keep my kids safe in a world that seems increasingly unsafe?
Sarah, that is a very good question because is our job as parents to limit the risk of our kids or to help them get stronger in the moment? And Cody, what's the big idea for this episode as we answer Sarah's question?
Yeah, so the big idea is that our job is to raise strong kids, not safe kids. And Sarah, I am right there with you. I feel it. Our kids are just getting to that stage, particularly with social media, where they're getting phones, their friends are getting phones.
Yeah.
Everybody's in the midst of that. And so I totally understand that. And I would come back to just remind us that our job is to raise strong kids, not safe kids. And really where I get that from is by looking at the Bible. And that's where point one is, that God's goal is to raise strong disciples, not safe disciples. His goal is to raise strong people, not safe people.
Yeah, that's good, Cody.
And we see that, throughout the Bible. You look at Israel, when he calls even individuals into following him. Think of Abraham. He says, "Hey, come follow me," and then sends them on like a
quest.
This quest, With Israel, he calls them out of Egypt,
he had a
but
good
he doesn't.
life.
Yeah, he doesn't just bring them out of Egypt into paradise. He's like, now you're going to wander the wilderness for 40 years.
Right.
And then you want that land. I'm giving you that land, but you're going to have to fight for it to get there. And then, you even look at Jesus with his disciples. He basically onboarded them.
Yeah.
And then was like, yeah, I know you don't get how to use Slack yet, but go go out there and start healing people and trying this out. Like,
right.
There was risk at every stage, and that was intentional.
Yeah, and what it produces. And I want to read Romans chapter 5, verses 3 through 5. So we could get a big picture idea of what these struggles and sufferings produce. And the verses say, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. These are the things we limit our kids to being exposed to and and growing in when we limit the risk instead of preparing them for it.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think preparing is like such a great word. I think our gut is always to protect our kids
right.
at any stage of their life.
Totally, yeah.
Like when they're babies, all the way up to if you have adult kids, raising adult kids. Your gut instinct is to protect them. And please don't get me wrong, there is 100% appropriate times to protect. But I think if that comes overwhelming, we're missing the way God has gone about raising his kids.
Yeah.
Are there times that God protected his kids from harm, his people from harm? 100%.
Right.
But there's a lot of times he doesn't.
He sends them into it.
Yeah, in fact, he either sends them into it or he sends them into situations where he knows that that's a very likely outcome.
Right.
And, I think even at every stage, our gut question should not be about protecting our kids, but about preparing our kids.
Yeah.
And sometimes preparing them might also mean protecting them, but the goal is to prepare them.
Yeah. And I think of an example, we've been checking out this church, and we've been telling our son, like, hey, this is a hard thing you're going to have to do. Enter into this youth room where 0 people. That can produce anxiety, that could be overwhelmed, nerves, all of it. But we've prepared him by saying, hey, we get this is a hard thing.
Yeah.
We're asking you to do something hard. We want to pray with you beforehand. We want to encourage you along the way, but we are asking you to do something that's a little uncomfortable. And he came back afterwards and he was like, I met 4 people in the first 5 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
And he went in there with that mentality. And it's that preparation instead of, hey, just sending him off into the unknown. But how do we take moments like that to prepare?
Yeah. Well, and what I love about that is I think we're oftentimes, at least for me, I've oftentimes been pleasantly surprised at what happens when you let your kid do the risky thing maybe a little earlier than you thought you would.
Yeah.
This is a good gut check for me, and hopefully Sarah and any other parents that are having this question, it's helpful. It's like, I think if we're doing it right, we should always feel just a little uncomfortable about the pace of the freedom we're giving our kids. Whether it's, letting them go to the grocery store or to a friend's house by themselves, like ride their bike somewhere.
Yeah, we just did
things
this
like that.
for one of the first times last week.
With our kids.
Yeah, I sent my kid off with your kids, and my wife was like, we've never done this before.
Yeah.
But we prepared him. We kind of gave them the parameters of which he could operate. And we want our kid to experience those things. We set up the boundaries so that he can experience freedom in those boundaries.
Yeah. Well, because I think of it, I think the joy we feel in those moments is the joy of seeing them grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's what we see, going back to even God and the way he grows us. I think he delights in seeing us grow.
Yeah.
Like he delights in seeing us become more and more like him. And he knows the only way for that to happen is through risk. But obviously, we are afraid. There is fear that it creeps in constantly as parents.
So what should we do about that fear?
Well, yeah, I mean, as hard as it is, and this is really the second point, is that fear should never drive our parenting choices.
Right.
We have to do everything we can to fight against fear driving parenting choices. Obviously, we want to keep them safe. We don't want, I'm not arguing for having your kids take flagrant risks that clearly should not happen.
Right,
But what's really interesting is we actually are keeping them safe best by preparing them for danger,
Right.
not protecting them.
Yeah,
from
and something
danger.
that you have said is we need to remember that God is not afraid.
Yeah.
God is not afraid, and Scripture tells us that perfect love drives out fear.
Yeah.
And so if we're engaging in this perfect love of Christ, then that we should have no fear in us at all, and we shouldn't instill that in our kids as
Yeah.
well.
Well, one of the things that I've seen both in my own kids and I taught at I've taught at a few different colleges and seen kids come through there. One of the things that is really tragic that I'll find is how ill-equipped they feel to be able to make decisions in that moment.
And these are adult.
Yeah, these are like
They've
18 plus.
They've brought this into their adulthood.
Yeah.
Is that fear.
Because, the truth is every kid is asking this question at any point in time. Do I have what it takes for this moment?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we are constantly afraid and allowing our fear to drive those decisions,
yeah.
then ultimately what's at stake is our kids are going to feel ill-equipped and they're going to start making decisions out of fear, coming into situations
Yeah.
and saying, I don't think that I have what it takes.
Right.
I'm afraid.
Yeah. And we need to remember and teach our kids that we can do hard things, especially when God's by our side. When God is with us always, we are equipped to do so much more than we think we're capable of.
Yeah.
And we need to remember that, but we need to instill that in our kids.
Yep.
That they
Yeah.
can do hard things, that they were made
Yeah.
to do hard things.
Yeah, and I would say, and this is the third point, is that like recognizing not just that risk and suffering is an unfortunate thing that we have to deal with. It's actually an essential part of God's design for our growth.
Right. Yeah.
Like, risk and suffering is an essential part of us becoming who God is trying to get us to be. Now, of course, danger looks different at each age, and I think we have to have the wisdom to recognize that.
Yeah.
But if we know that, for one, this is how God made us to work. God made us to work to grow through suffering, to grow through risks, to grow through pain.
Yeah.
And that if we want our kids to feel equipped to handle whatever situation they're in, they're going to have to do that. Then we can allow them danger, the appropriate level of danger at each age.
Yeah. Danger at each age. It made me think of this moment this past weekend where my son was playing soccer on concrete surface and he fell and you just hear it smack.
I will say that does seem like a risk that you could change.
Yeah.
I
mean, yeah, but he's a
we live in
competitive
Oregon,
kid.
there's grass.
Yeah, and there was grass right next to them. That is an interesting concept. But I think of danger at any age, and I think of I looked at my son, went over, comforted him, got him up, and I was like, if this was me on the ground right now, on the concrete as a 42-year-old man, I would be in so much more danger.
Falling hurts
I would
so
still
much
be there
now.
right now, and this was 2 days
Falling
ago.
hurts so much now.
Dude.
Like, why?
Man.
Why? Like, and I see my kids do things that I'm like, if
bounce
that
right
happened
up.
to that, like,
Oh
if that
my
happened to
gosh.
me,
Yeah.
I'd be done.
Done.
Just call it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, danger looks different at each age, and we need to recognize, obviously, with wisdom, what level of danger. Some of the best stuff that I'm reading out there on this very topic is coming from Greg Lukianoff and Jonathan Haidt. They wrote the book Coddling of the American Mind. I think Jonathan Haidt just came out with The Anxious Generation. There's a number of books there. One of the phrases that they use in The Coddling of the American Mind is you want to prepare the child for the road, not the road for the child.
Wow.
And I think it's such an incredible pivot for us.
Yeah.
Because I think our gut instinct is to say, okay, my kid is going there. I'm going to go out before them, and I'm going to remove all risk.
Pave the way. I'm going to clear all the...
clear the way. Get the cars off the road.
Instead of saying just don't...
Instead of just saying like don't run into the cars or learn how to, do that stuff.
Yeah. That's good.
And it reminds me of a story my dad would tell, talking about this very idea of like our job is to help raise strong kids, not safe kids. Years ago, there was some science experiment, I think in Arizona somewhere, basically where they tried to create, I think it was called the Biodome.
Yes.
Not to be confused with the Pauly Shore movie.
Come on, man.
Was it called Biodome?
It was called Biodome.
Okay. Yeah. So
now you're just telling me it's a documentary.
Yeah, it was a documentary. But the whole idea is, can we create a functioning ecosphere that is devoid of the actual ecosphere around it? So, it's this giant glass thing. Trying to do this. They're raising crops. They're doing all these things. And what would happen is these trees, they would plant these trees, they would grow to a certain point, and they kept on falling over.
Wow.
They'd grow to a certain point, they kept on falling over, and they could not figure out why was this happening. The soil was right, the trees were right, like the pH balance, all of that stuff, the watering, everything was there.
Right.
They couldn't figure it out until finally they did figure it out, and the problem was there was no wind in there.
Oh, interesting.
So for trees to actually grow and be strong and withstand and like grow to a certain point, they have to bear wind. If there's no wind on them, then the roots won't grow properly and they won't be able to ultimately stand up. I think for us, and Sarah, this goes back to your question, this goes to every parent who is wanting to raise their kids to thrive in a dangerous world.
Yeah.
Is that if we want that to happen, if we want them to grow and not fall over, we have to allow the wind to get them, which is one of the hardest things that we can do as parents. But we have to not only allow the wind to happen, but sometimes encourage situations where they're going to meet like resistance, where they're going to be possibly knocked over, knocked down, hurt, all of these things, obviously within reason.
Right.
But if we're doing that, I think we're actually working within God's design for how we raise kids. That God wants us to raise strong kids. He wants every child, every person to be able to look at the situation that they're in and say, I have what it takes to handle this situation. And I think we do that by helping them become strong kids, not necessarily safe kids. And we do that by preparing them for this world, not protecting them.
Hey, this is Breon from Portland. Next time on Blueprints.
Oh, I also hate carnivals.
See, I'm not a fan of carnivals either. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
Any form of fest. Like, why? Festivus, parades.
You would have hated living in the Old Testament.
Oh, yeah. Like, come to the feast. Why, God?
7 days?
We had one last week.
Blueprints is a production of Grace-Based Families, a nonprofit that equips ordinary parents to raise extraordinary kids. Grace-Based Families makes free resources for parents thanks to the generosity of listeners like me. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebasedfamilies.com/join.